So guys, I think we have a very exciting topic just presented by Jacob just now. In relation to our smart cities, now we're going to see a digital twin of smart cities. I think all the cities in Malaysia nowadays, I think, should be converted into metaverse cities. Easier to interact compared to the real cities. There's a lot of challenges that we face when we want to do something in the real smart cities area. Okay, first of all, I think I would like to ask to Dato about this thing, because you have shown, you have given your background on procurement, funding, and all that. I think that's the first question that I wanted to ask to YBhg. Okay, I think when we look at, talking about the clean, beautiful, then you say smart, and then you have another safe, smart, and then the sustainable part. I like the part where you say, if you want to do it, you must have do it. Okay, so in fact, when one of the big changes of all the MSCA members here, especially in the solutions provider, approaching and implementing smart cities, they have this issue of how to fund the project. So in the case of YBhg, how do you see that funding these projects can be realized, and what are the best business models for us to implement this? Because these are the things that is going to prolong us in terms of real implementation.
Yeah, good but tough question. I think when you talk about funding, depending on the scope itself, for example, say like you're talking about CCTV, talking about street lighting and so on. So there are quite a number of sources of funding. Normally state government, federal government, and also the council themselves come up with the funding. But if you just ask for the fund, they will get fund. They won't give you every idea unless you come up with a real solid proposal. When you have a solid proposal, only then funding. It's very likelihood that you will get a fund, either from state or federal, or even sometimes public sector. For example, so like in YBhg, beautification wise, we have I call it kerjasama dengan private sector. One company called they built beautification bunga alam mata. It cost the company 500,000. They voluntarily sponsor that project. It's not something they see that you have a very good idea, a concrete proposal. Then funding is not that hard to combine.
But if you take a look like funding in the case where the councils themselves can create revenue. So for the proposal, one of the things that they can do is revenue sharing. So this easier way, rather than the councils themselves have to fork out their money, is based on revenue sharing. But in the case where solutions is based on services to the people which you don't get revenue from, it's just to increase the efficiency, increase the quality of life. It doesn't bring revenue. But how do you fund that kind of projects?
You are saying just now revenue sharing. In reality, one of the concepts that the state government have at one time trying to embark is user pay concept. When it comes to reality, we are subsidy pay concept. So to really get the sharing based on revenue generated from the project, I have seen a lot and public failure. Because one is like your side, you are based on your niat. Tahu niat? Niat means net income after tax. After like if your niat is not there or NIT tak ada, then you are say no, the project become failure.
Okay, speechless. Okay, no. Okay, Jacob, I think your business has transformed. I think we have known you guys from the big data analytics, AI, now in the world of metaverse. and it's the future. But I like the way you say you are the internet. You know, you are in the internet. And like you mentioned just now, it's easier to interact something which is in the virtual world. Everything that you can do is very impossible. Like it's possible to do that. But why do you see that this metaverse is something a big opportunity for Fusionex now? Where do you see Malaysia in that kind of metaverse? When actually Malaysia can become that kind of metaverse, adopting that? If there is a big problem of embracing, why does it take for us to, a lot of technologies are quite slow in Malaysia sometimes to be embraced. So in your opinion, why do you take this path, and why do you see that Malaysia, how far is Malaysia in this space?
Thank you. I think that's a beautiful question, and maybe I can draw an analogy to our company as well. As a company, we have evolved from custom application development, then we move on to business intelligence, and then we move on to big data, and then we move on to artificial intelligence, and today we are progressing forward to the metaverse. Why do we do that? It is of course by choice, but in reality actually no choice. Because if you do not evolve, then you will be rendered obsolete, at least in the technology space. So it is something that I view as a right turn. There is no T-junction. You cannot turn left. There is no straight route ahead. You either make the right turn or you make a U-turn. So for us, we always try to make the right turn because that is the only way moving forward. And we saw that in the space of BI and big data and AI, and we think that the metaverse is inevitable as well. As to why I think that countries, especially Malaysia, because I'm Malaysian as well, I feel that we should be embarking on this journey sooner rather than later, is because it is of the same concept as when I advise new entrepreneurs. When they start up and they're trying to build a new business, I would share with them that try not to penetrate a market where you have champions. For example, if you're trying to penetrate the mobile market, there is very little chance of you winning because there are champions like Huawei and Apple. They are champions. So these are very successful vendors out there. If you're trying to penetrate the sportswear market, there are champions like Adidas and Nike as well. So they are champions which you can beat them, everything's possible, but the task is really steep, it's very difficult. Similarly, for smart cities and smart nation, I think right now, there are no real champions, at least in the metaverse space. Everyone's trying to feel the technology, they're questioning it, they suspect, they have their suspicion. And we have the chance to be first mover, and I think Malaysia, traditionally, we have been very successful in being the first movers in the IT space, in digital economy. So there's been a lot of opportunities, and we have demonstrated how we can be the first mover. So with that, I think the metaverse is a huge opportunity for us. While the others are still questioning, sleeping, and watching, we can make the first move to be the first successful smart city and smart nation in the metaverse.
Okay, thank you. But you did mention just now that we're going to see this metaverse within the next 5 to 10 years.
That's right. Yeah.
So what does it take for us? I mean, other than taking that first jump, what are the necessary things that we build first to ensure that we are ready?
I think from a private sector perspective, we need to cultivate the skill sets. We need to have more 3D developers. We need to have more spatial developers. That is very important. From a public sector perspective, of course, there is endorsement support that is provided by the government in every way. It doesn't always have to be funding, though funding doing it always helps. But that's not the only element. So I think support from the government and skill sets, cultivation from the private sector, these are the essential elements.
Okay, thank you. I also like to open to the floor if you have any questions, and I will just also get the questions from the online if there is any. So any questions from the floor first?
Yeah.
Yes, Datu.
Junaidi Reduan, Datu Hj. Okay. I have one question. I see there are a lot of things about smart. What about low carbon city, low carbon footprint? Yeah? And then you mentioned about public participation. You have local agenda 21 that you implement in your Dewan Bandaraya. So probably that is one of the areas that you can do. But seeing all this digitalization moving on, do you have to make any amendment of Akta 133, Akta Jalan Parit dan Bangunan? Because PBT normally when you want to transform from normal to digital, there are things that may not be applicable because the act is still the old act. You cannot enforce because you are not doing the normal way things. And I see that just now you mentioned about permohonan KM secara online. You can submit your KM application and you can get it approved by tomorrow morning. Oh, that is very fast. Here, at least we take about the standard KM is about 60 days. And you have to, on 2 sittings, you must get approval. Otherwise, it will be a red mark in your system. So those are the things. As far as, now I go back to solar application. In our regulation, there is requirement for solar rooftop to get approval from the professional engineers. Do you have such thing in Kuching, Utara punya bandaraya, to requirement of having getting for any household who want to install solar panel on their rooftop via online or via physical to get a professional engineer for their approval? And I would like to suggest or propose that on your smart thing, probably you should add smart energy application where consumer can decide what kind of energy they want to buy at particular time. Maybe they buy from hydro, they buy from coal, or they buy from solar. Or maybe we can make some proposal on the smart energy application for that. So that's my question. Thank you.
Masih kalau banyak soalan dan nobody can move on. First is about Akta enabler. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Akta is applicable to Sarawak. The local authority punya Akta, kita ada segi local authority ordinance, segi local authority bylaws and regulations. So we don't see any much problem. But as I said, in the end of the day, that's why if you look at my presentation, it's about what the government wants. Our duty is to deliver what the government wants. And the government has to deliver what the public wants. If the government wants A, the public want A, the government has to deliver A. If we deliver B, we will be problem. So, but at the same time also we are supposed to be sufficient to the government. So, all these things kita kena synchronize. So there are so many players inside these smart cities and so on, the private sectors and so on. And the biggest problem we have, the challenges, one of the main challenges is that when somebody says that I'm right, definitely he's right. But as far as he's concerned, so he forgot about the 2 rules. Rule number 1, the boss is always right. And rule number 2, in doubt, go back to rule number 1. So all these things we must know how to manage. So in terms of low cover, whatever, as I said, Parti Sarawak, we are fortunate because our premier, he has a very strong vision. He wants Sarawak to be developed by 2050. So anything that we need to adjust, we adjust, and we don't have much problem when it comes to amendment of laws. That's why we create SFA. So when it comes to the power tadi, we have limited macam policy. All this one has provided called monopoly. But when it comes to solar, it's not an issue because you also install solar. There's some Kuching North solar. It's not an issue. But except for when it comes to public use, itu saja mungkin. As I said, macam for example, say when we install LED, Cisco kata you can install, but maintenance you will use. Now the consecutive one, they install, they maintain. Things like the policy by me is. Amendment law can be amended by.
Thank you. Any other question? Yeah, sure.
This is addressed to me. Just to understand between Kuching Utara dengan Kuching Selatan, the 2 councils. So do you compete in terms of the strategies, or are they all coordinated into a single objective for both Kuching Majlis? That's the first question. The second question to Fusionex boss Jacob is that metaverse, where you showed metaverse to the public use versus metaverse to smart city, water, irrigation, energy, where does it play? I didn't see the connection there. Thank you.
not the local authority to provide service. The question of competition doesn't arise. We are supposed to complement each other. For Kuching, the three council, namely Padawan Municipal Council, MBKS, and YBhg, we have a joint committee. Especially kalau kita nak buat pagi, for example, kalau kita nak buat pagi, kita buat 2 meters, dia buat 1.5 meters dari trouble. So we always sit down dekat the border, we sit down, and then macam pokok, tebas, rumput, and so on, we dialog. And the worst one is even we have a joint operation, for example, like anjing. Anjing ni pada sekolah. Betul. Kalau dekat Kuching tu, kalau dia dengar lori dibikin letak, dia akan cross the other side. And you have no jurisdiction, no locus standi to go.
You know the border.
Memang berlaku. Dekat especially WB go to Batam one day, we happen to be picture lah bring you. Kalau dia dengar lori, dia bikin letak, dia akan cross to FPP side. So what can you do? Unless you have a joint operation. If you have a regular joint meeting,
priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's same priority for 3 majlis, for different priorities for smart city objective.
So as I said, smart city, kita all go down to the premier wish, and then the SFA is coordinating. So all the requests have to go to SFA, and they are coordinating. The chairman of SFA is the premier himself.
Thanks for the question. I think for smart cities, it's separated to 2 components. One is the smart city for the physical world, and one is the smart city for the digital world. So the physical world, I think initiatives where we have around like smart traffic, smart irrigation, agriculture, etc., that should still run. We should still pursue those. But traditionally, we have always had a lot of challenges around that. Challenges because of regulations, challenges because of people, challenges because of funding. And we should still continue to pursue and overcome those challenges, but those challenges will remain. For the digital smart city, what I'm merely saying is that we should also pursue that as a separate stream. And if you think about SimCity, or you think about any online gaming where you have cities and they have economies as well, there is an opportunity to work and to earn money and to have efficiencies to create digital currencies for that entity and to support the operations of that city. So smart cities and its use cases within the digital foray is the same as the physical one, and rightfully it should be pursued first, I think, or together, because of 2 reasons. Number one, it's a lot more economical to do it. It's a lot cheaper. All there is code, software. You don't have too much of regulations around it as of now. You don't have too much of people factors around there, and you don't have the constraint of IoT sensors and hardware devices. So it's all just software code, that's it. You just hire a bunch of programmers and they can do the job. So that's one. A second thing is that if you look at embracing technology as a whole, the biggest barrier, if you think about the biggest barrier, it's always imagination. When people embrace big data, they want to do it, but they don't know exactly what is it. They don't know how it would, they can't visualize how it would benefit the organization. Similarly in AI, everybody wants to do AI, but they don't really know how to use it because they can't imagine. So we spend a big part of our business development engaging and educating people and doing POCs and demos to help them understand that this is what you're going to get. And smart cities in the digital arena provides exactly that, because if you can do that successfully in a digital world, in the metaverse, it is so much easier to appreciate because now people see it happening in the metaverse. When they put an advisor, they see it happening, they come back to the physical, they say, I know exactly what we should do. We should be doing this because it's so visual that you can see and appreciate it right now. Without that visual appreciation, if it's just text and blueprints or just a lot of literature written down, when you talk about smart cities, people, they look at you with a blur face that they want to do it, they think it's expensive, but they can't really fully appreciate its fruition as well. So that's why I suggested that we should be doing both, so that the metaverse can run, and if that's faster to be implemented, that can prove as a reference point for smart cities in the physical world, because now people know exactly, they've seen it happening in the metaverse, they know how to propagate it back to the physical world.
Yeah, we have one more question.
Hi, this is Aslan from
Can you use the mic? Be appropriate. On the mic.
I have a question to Mr. Jacob Isaac. Interesting name, I think. Very prophetic. I think the Abrahamic tradition has prophets from the name of Jacob and Isaac. My question would be, I'm sure that Jacob is familiar with the deep philosophical or moral questions on metaverse. There are things that I worry seeing my kids now, even with the simple, maybe semi-metaverse world now, after PKP, that he doesn't want to go to school anymore. He enjoys doing lessons online. That is not yet fully metaverse. And I'm sure there are illegal things and unmoral things that can happen in metaverse. Things that you are legally bounded or morally bounded in the real world that can be done in metaverse. Can we have some thoughts on that? Where do we draw the boundaries on doing this metaverse? Because there are things that you cannot do in real world that you can do in the metaverse. And we don't want our future generations to be exposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think that's a very valid one. I think about 2 months ago, my son was approached by this supposedly lady on Instagram and asking him for where he stays, what's his phone number, and what kind of shoes he wears, what kind of car he drives or his dad drives. And my son is just 12 years old, to give you some context. And he was chatting with her because he thought she is some pretty lady, and he was attracted, right? Thankfully, I have a very strong bond with my son, and I talk to him frequently about his engagements, and he told me that, hey, there's this lady who has been approaching him, and he told me about a whole ordeal. So I said, if you don't mind, can I have a look at those messages? So I had a look at those messages, the photos that she sent, and it was clearly downloaded from the internet, it's not her. So I told him that I think it's a him, not a her. That's what I honestly feel based on my years of experience in courtship. So I told him, girls don't talk like that, I think it's a guy. So after explaining to him, he understood. I told him that there are a few do's and don'ts, things like exposing your dress and taking a photograph of your house and your cars. Oddly enough, he took a photograph of a Lamborghini which didn't belong to me as well. But I told him that those are inappropriate because you just put risks to the family and yourself. So after a while, he deleted in front of me and he promised he will do it again. And I know he doesn't do it all over again because I've got a second son who is very talkative, who tells me all about what big predators is for. So I've got double structure fortification over there. But to answer your question is that I think that misappropriate happenings like this and bad behavior like this is always going to happen, and people are going to exploit those. Instead of thinking how we can stop progress because we are too concerned about these things, I think we should still move full steam ahead, but having in parallel another stream of regulators who will think about it, who will think about conduct and the values of society as we understand, and replicate a lot of those values and improvise those values for the metaverse as well. And I'm sure that as time goes by, that will only be solidified and will get better and better. Someone's going to do that, and Malaysia traditionally has been quite good in regulation, I think, in terms of Bank Negara and AMLA. We are probably one of the leading nations over here, tightest in terms of regulation. So we have a good track record around those. And I think leave that to the regulators. In terms of technology pursuers and disruptors, we should still pursue that. As a leading nation, we should always strive to be number one. But back with the culture, the education system, and the values and moral values that we have as Malaysians, I'm confident we will still remain triumphant. Thank you.
Thank you. What we are seeing now is that we have challenges in the current regulation as what we are facing in the real physical world. And now we are going to have new regulation again in the metaverse world. So that's very interesting to see. And one last question is actually to our Dato'. In order for us to expedite the growth of these smart cities, especially in BKU, for example, and how do you see MSCA like us can play that role in expediting that growth?
Thank you, very good question. Remember a philosophy that says a good manager is to get things done through somebody. So if I want to get things done, I have to go through MSCA. So we cannot be a judge judge, we cannot be a prosecutor, we cannot be an accused at the same time. But the most important thing, as what we were talking about to the Deputy Minister this morning, is to ensure that whatever we do will not be in silo. It has to be interfaces or integrated easily. So this is where SMA comes in.
Thank you very much, Datuk, for that encouragement and also for guidance from you. So I think because we are short of time for lunch, we have also for lunch. So I would like to say thank you very much to both our speakers. Please give them a big hand. Thank you. Inshallah, we will see you again in the next talk series. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Tuan Moderator dan para penceramah di atas sesi perkongsian begitu menarik sekali. Dengan itu majlis menjemput Yang Berusaha Dr. Hassan untuk menyampaikan token penghargaan kepada para penceramah. Dipersilakan yang berbahagia Datu Junaidi dan Encik Jacob ke pentas untuk penyampaian cenderamata. Dipersilakan. Para hadirin sekalian, maka berakhirlah majlis kita pada tengah hari ini. Selaku sekretariat kami mengucapkan terima kasih di atas kerjasama dan sokongan yang diberikan. Dengan itu majlis menjemput para hadirin sekalian bagi menikmati jamuan yang disediakan. Sehingga kita berjumpa lagi. Sekian, terima kasih dan Assalamualaikum.